of 1953, a vacant lot in southwest Springfield, Missouri. Workmen prepare the foundation for a new building that will house a booming new business, local television. In the early 1950s, TV stations were being constructed as fast as the government would allow. Everyone wanted to get into the business. Advertisements for television sets filled the papers, and black and white 21-inch consoles were selling in every appliance store. Americans were falling in love with the tube. Watching television was already a national pastime. In 1953, about 70,000 people lived in Springfield. No one knows how many families had TV, perhaps a few hundred. Those that did have them usually had a living room full of friends and relatives watching a snowy, ghost-like image of NBC stations in St. Louis or Kansas City. CBS programs had been on KTTS TV for just a few weeks. So, through the summer of '53, workers hurried to get the station on the air, to beam the new magic of television into the homes of TV-hungry Ozarkians. Chief Engineer Dennis White was one of the first employees.
The television was so new that the equipment coming out of the factories, there was a lot of bugs in it. And they were trying to put it out so fast because everybody was wanting equipment. Everybody was trying to get on the air first. And they were sending it out so fast that, boy, you went over it and tightened nuts and resoldered joints. And
by September, the finishing touches were being made. The miles of cables were connected, hundreds of tubes glowed to life, the tower was topped off, and test patterns were beamed out by the transmitter. Finally, all equipment and employees were fine-tuned to readiness, and viewers learned the new station was about to hit the airwaves. Then, 25 years ago this week, the new station's first schedule was published, and at exactly 4:47 in the afternoon, KYTV, Channel 3, was on the air.
KYTV,
this
Channel
is your
3,
tower station in the
Missouri.
Ozarks. KYTV.
Serving all the Ozarks, KYTV, Channel 3.
TV for the Queen City of the Ozarks, KYTV Channel 3.
KY3 country is you.
First day on the air started with a patriotic program, followed at 5:30 by Kit Carson, a Western serial. Then at 6, the studio lights came up for the very first KY3 newscast. Jerry Higley and Dave Estes did news and weather. Don Payton did sports and helped out with the cameras. The big story of the day, well, no one has the copy, but it was probably about snake hunts in Springfield. It seems some cobras escaped from a pet store. Springfieldians panicked, and cobra posses were formed. They went after anything that even remotely looked like a snake. In all, about 8 or 10 cobras were found. No one was injured. Elsewhere in Missouri, drought was a big story. President Eisenhower came to Kansas City to offer help to concerned area farmers. In sports, the top story of the day was in New York City. Casey Stengel's Yankees and the Brooklyn Dodgers were in the World Series. The Yankees won 4-2. After that first newscast, there was a dedication program. And at 7, we joined NBC, one of the 2 networks we carried at that time. The other was ABC.
Well, isn't this comfy? Well, let's not waste any time. Why don't the 3 of us neck?
No. That's the first time I ever enjoyed saying no.
That's the first time I ever enjoyed hearing it.
Enjoy yourselves, darling. It's later than you think.
That's what I say. It's later than you think. Come on, children, let's neck.
Groucho, Cecil does not neck, and neither do I.
Speak for yourself, darling.
Gonzalez. What does the G stand for?
Ramiro Gonzalez Gonzalez.
What are you, twins?
No.
Are you pinch hitting for your father?
No, I'm Gonzalez, Ramiro Gonzalez Gonzalez, because my father, before she married my mother, he was Gonzalez.
What does your wife call you, Ramiro or Gonzalez?
She called me Pedro.
And so it went until after sign-off at 10:30 after the news. That first broadcast day lasted 5 hours and 33 minutes, and we haven't been off the air a single day since. As the weeks and months passed, our broadcast days got longer, much of it filled with local live programs. In those days, there was no videotape, no way to record a program for later broadcast. So, no record of these early programs exists. Examples of these early shows include Sunday afternoon Springfield Symphony concerts, Biederman's Bar 20 Country Music Show, and Teen Time. Local teenagers danced to a new kind of music, rock and roll. And there was wrestling. Who could forget big names like Gorgeous George grappling his way to fame and fortune in a ring set up in our studio? Remember Guy Willis? He was known locally by thousands of young cowboys and cowgirls as the Wrangler. Every afternoon, the Wrangler would introduce Western cereals and issue brands. He'd take your initials and design your very own brand. No one knows if any of them were ever burned into the side of a Texas Longhorn. These and other early local programs faded out, except for one. It was started just a few months after KY3 went on the air. And it's still on, almost 25 years later, the oldest locally produced television program in southwest Missouri.
The Children's Playtime Cottage opens wide its doors.
And we would like to tell you the fun there is in store.
First, you'll meet Aunt Alice.
Would you like to come on in the Playtime Cottage? It's kind of cold out here, so let's go into the Playtime right now.
And Alice Lowe, was one of the first hostesses of the Children's Hour. Every afternoon, she would bring in half a dozen or so children for an hour of crafts, birthday cakes, songs, and Skinny and Rusty.
Well, I'm so glad you're here because that old clock is saying, tick-tock, tick-tock, what's the old clock saying? Time to have our riddle now, that is what it says.
This kinescope of a live Children's Hour is the only recording of its kind of those early shows.
The first thing we do before we guess our riddle, we all put
this summer, we took a copy of it and played it for Aunt Alice at her home.
Well, we're ready.
It was the first time she had ever seen it.
We're ready.
Oh, for crying out loud.
We're going to look at the flag and we're going to say,
I'm very apt to cry. I still have that apron. I do. And that's the box that the little boy dumped the ice cream cone on the top of my head. So, you know, we had him sit up there, different periods, we changed the scene. And one time, he was sitting up there, he didn't want his ice cream, you know, and we kept saying, oh, you can have it, honey, you don't have to eat it. So he said, okay. So when I turned around and looked at the camera, he took the ice cream and just plopped it right on top of my head, ice cream and all. I said, oh, that feels so good. It's so nice and cool. And I left it on, it melted down.
For a while, Aunt Alice alternated with Aunt Reen Hanley. She later went to another local station and started Romper Room. So, for the first 4 years of Children's Hour, most viewers remember Aunt Alice.
We're wishing
For you did it well.
keep wishing, and soon you'll be all well.
Happy birthday to you.
Everybody
Happy
sing.
birthday to you.
Real loud.
Happy birthday, everybody.
All together now.
Happy birthday to you.
Make a wish.
Now blow
out candles.
For the past 21 years, Ozark area children have come out to the KY3 studios to help Aunt Norma blow out the birthday cake candles. Over the years, Aunt Norma's Children's Hour has evolved from a daily live program to a weekly taped hour show. The ideas and format have remained fairly constant. She uses a mix of crafts, games, storytelling, and special guests to round out her show.
I love it, and I only have one worry, that I'll still be able to do it for 20 more years. I really love it. Somebody said, you know, are you ever going to retire from Children's Hour? And I said, no, I'm going to be just like a vaudeville action where they have the hook, and when they're tired of you, they pull you off. Someone will have to come in with the hook and pull me off.
KY3 was one of the first stations in the Midwest to buy remote equipment, TV cameras and electronic devices that could beam a live picture from places miles from the station. We got our first remote unit in August 1954, and within a week after unpacking the cameras, we had them at the Ozark Empire Fair, picking up activities at that annual event. In the years that followed, the KY3 live remote cameras were with KYTV personalities like Carl Fox all over town, covering happenings of local interest, air shows from the airport, Christmas parades, election returns from the Greene County Courthouse, a bowling show from the Old Plaza Bowling Alley, fashion shows, SMSU football games. Perhaps the most memorable live remote program started out in front of Hers department store in downtown Springfield. It was a simple idea that gave viewers a chance to be on TV themselves. Chuck Hessington was the TV visitor. He told producer Ed Filmer television cameras attracted crowds.
That was back in the days when television was a real novelty, and people just they were drawn to it like a magnet. Anybody was around within a couple of blocks, they would be at a location where we had a microphone and a camera. And I thought it was great. That's live television. That's the good stuff. Oh man, love it.
The show eventually moved to the Tower Theater, and Fran Eulis was the man with a mic.
When you walked up this morning and stood under the canopy here, does it bring back a flood of memories?
Yes. The only thing that surprises me, Ed, is that I don't have a sea of people, or the people dam hasn't broken to see all the smiling faces that used to greet us out here.
Do people still call you the man with the mic?
Yes, it's surprising. I've been away from, about 12 years now, but I think more people remember me as the man with a mic than anything else I did at Channel 3.
Every day, Man with a Mic ended with a contest called The Secret Silhouette.
We'd ask a question every day.
Yeah.
And the person that got the first closest or the first correct answer would receive $5 and the opportunity to identify the secret silhouette. Now, once our money would build, the minute I'd pose the question, a lot of people came out here in pairs, and after they'd hear the question, one of them would head for the automobile to look at the almanac or whatever to try and find out what the question was. Say you give a $2,500 or $3,000, the reaction was never like, you know, the net money, great, but we would meet the individual back at the station at 1 o'clock, and at that time Ralph Stuffelbaum was general manager, and he signed the check. And then's when you'd notice the reaction of the individual. I think the impact that they'd won a couple of $1,000s, they'd be tremendously nervous then. But out here, you wouldn't get a tremendous amount of reaction as you do on your network shows.
They would say, oh, I just won $3,000.
That's about it, you know what I mean? And of course, you'd feel a little blah because the Linkletter would, you know, give away a TV set, and they'd jump up and down, and you'd give $3,000 away, and nobody'd do anything.
Another popular noon-hour program that ran just before Man with a Mic was called Midday, hosted by Larry Dixon, Claudia Cox, Fran Eulis, and Jack Martin. Midday was a light mix of news, weather, interviews, features, cooking, and entertainment. At that time, NBC's Today Show was very popular. Midday emulated the Today Show style on a local level.
And examine and edit today's world into a form of television program which, believe me, is new. It's called Today. And my name is Dave Garroway.
We have a Tonight Show, we have a Today Show. There ought to be something at noon that would include news, household hints, especially things that the housewife would be interested in seeing. But we didn't want it to be typically housewifey. Many of the husbands were home at noon too, and I think it was a pretty well-rounded program.
We tried a kind of a laid-back approach. The host of the Today Show then was Dave Garroway. We tried a sort of a laid-back approach like he had. And
today is Tuesday, June 2nd, 1959. And incidentally, there are only 172 days left now until Christmas.
The Today Show brought the whole country into the living rooms of Americans. The Midday program brought the Ozarks into the homes of Ozarkians. This film, the only remaining record of Midday programs, was shot near Bull Shoals Lake in Theodosia, Missouri. The theme was vacationing in the Ozarks. Most of the Midday programs originated live from the KYTV studios. And when one is on live, anything can happen.
you know, one time we were going to show a barbecue recipe, but we were trying to do a thing with a grill, and it got out of hand. It just absolutely was on fire, and the flames were just leaping everywhere. And this gal was trying very hard to hold her cool, you know, to not let this disrupt her. You know, it was like in the radio days. You know, back when somebody lit your copy and it was burning away, you know, the way you really persevered was to stay cool, and the audience would never know. You know, well, of course, in television they could see, you know. And so what she's there with the barbecue unit, and it is literally burning this meat, you know, to a crisp, and she is taking no note of it, you know. She's saying, and then, of course, you sprinkle on a little oregano, and then you give it a dash of pepper, and the fire is just consuming everything, you know.
What about commercials? Did you ever do live commercials?
Oh, yes.
What was that like?
I did one with a Polaroid camera. And I took the picture, and of course they moved in to show, at the end of my 60 seconds, to show my picture, and there wasn't anything there. Live commercials are exciting.
Another popular midday program on KY3 for several years was called High Noon. The host, Lloyd Evans, could be seen every day reading the farm news from behind a Cracker Barrel. Lloyd's barrel is still in the prop room of our studio.
We talked about agriculture. I was always known as an agricultural man, and we talked mostly with future farmers and 4-H kids. It was homespun. It was mighty, mighty country in those days. Times have changed. They have. The media's changed. I think the audience has changed. They expect more. They are justified in expecting more.
Was it difficult going from radio to television?
It was for me because I'm a radio man. I was always radio at heart. Television, I was never at ease on television. I am now because they can't fire me. They can cut me off, but they can't fire me. I never did like television. I had a fine audience, and the folks were awfully good and loyal to me, but as far as being on television, I never belonged on.
But you were on 12, 13 years.
You've done a lot of things in 13 years of your life that you shouldn't have ever done from the first, you know. And I was never cut out for television. One of my daughters asked me today, said, "You're not going to wear your overalls." I said, "That's all I want to wear, because this way people think I am either a college man or a member of a rock and roll band. If you wear overalls, they think I'm a bass player, you know."
Familiar faces from some of the old regular shows. But in those early days, we were doing specials, too. In March 1959, KY3 acquired a major new technological advancement, a device that changed the TV industry, a videotape machine. Up until then, everything had to be done live or on film. Videotape permitted easy recording of program material. That videotape recorder was one of the first in this part of the country, and it was portable. It added a new dimension to remote television production. Now, when the KY3 remote trucks rolled down the highways, they were equipped to either beam back a program live or tape it on location for later playback.
To the beautiful hills and valleys of the Ozarks came a man from the city. Among the natives of the district, he found a peaceful atmosphere and medicine for the soul. The Ozark people he lived with.
The potential of the new portable videotape equipment inspired one KY3 employee to do something that had never been done on videotape by a small station, a dramatic adaptation of one of the most popular books of all times.
The Shepherd of the Hills is our story.
I'll tell you a story. It's new and it's bold, yet the story that
A group of us were headed to Table Rock Lake one weekend, and the Table Rock Lake area was not, not an old thing at that time. It was relatively new, and so pretty, so beautiful. And we were talking about how, in fact, I was telling the group about the new videotape machine we had. And I was, letting them in on the marvels of electronics, that you could actually take a picture, record it, and play it back without developing it, or anything. And so we began to talk about how nice it would be to take that down to the hills and shoot some of that lovely country.
From that simple idea grew the concept for the program. Dixon, along with others in the Branson area and Springfield, put up the money, and KY3 trucked their new videotape deck down to Old Matt's cabin. In those days, it was not possible to edit videotape, so each scene had to follow the other, like a stage production.
And coming from
if you look at it now, it's some of the parts of it are so, the equipment we used, the things we had to do to make the show, it just, isn't even up to low standards, today. But then it was innovative, and I think the people who watched it accepted the flaws in it, and the reaction was very, very good. In fact, we got a bunch of requests from other stations. It played in Seattle and Los Angeles. It played all over the country. I think the reaction it got here at home from the audience was just super. It was a labor of love, and it was something that was done largely off the routine of the regular day. We had our shows to produce, our regular things to do, and it was done largely after work, The station's facilities made wholly available, and everything. So, yeah, it was. I think it was a labor of love.
Inside the cave, there was a cabin.
KYTV's videotaped adaptation of the famous Harold Bell Wright novel won a major television award in 1959, presented by TV Radio Mirror magazine for the most original TV program of the year. Special programs for special occasions. This one was very special. In 1959, Tennessee Ernie Ford brought his NBC variety show to the Drury College campus in Springfield. The occasion was the dedication of the Breech School of Business Administration. Ernest Breech, a Drury graduate, was then the Ford Motor Company board chairman. He donated the business school building to the college, and this show climaxed the dedication ceremonies. It was produced by an NBC crew through the facilities of KYTV. Originally broadcast live nationwide in color, this black and white kinescope is the only record left.
When I go to a place, I like to find out as much about it as I can. And I discovered some interesting things about Springfield, and some I can talk about. And for example, the government built a radar tracking station right next to the Drury College campus. So far, they haven't tracked any rockets, but they've sure been getting some interesting blips from the parked cars on Campus Road. And I must say, Springfield is one of the friendliest places I have ever been. What hospitality! Boy, it's good to be back here where they fry it and sop it. Some people say a man is made out of mud. A poor man's made out of muscle and blood. Muscle and blood and skin and bones. A mind that's weak and a back that's strong. You load to 16 tons. And what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me, 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Can you
This Tennessee Ernie Ford special was not the first program to be broadcast nationwide by KY3. In fact, another program started by KYTV back in 1953 was a regular network show for 6 years. Springfield became famous for this program. In a moment, producer Ed Filmer will take us back to Red Foley's Jubilee USA.
If the right one don't get you, then the left one will, you know. Don't you hate to cock your pistol and have to let the hammer down, eh? I owe my soul to the company store.
Good evening, I'm Ed Filmer. Years ago, the Jewel Theater stood here on the corner of Jefferson and St. Louis in downtown Springfield. It was the home of Jubilee USA, at one time the most popular program on network television. And it all started here on KY3.
Once again, from the heart of the Ozarks, it's Jubilee USA. And now, the Jubilee star, Red Foley!
I've been along, there'll be no more sausage, throbbing his roll, sweet song. Wake up, you sleepyhead, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red. Live, love, laugh, be happy, what if I'm blue?
Red Foley's Jubilee USA put Springfield, Missouri on the map. Starting in April 1955, it aired on ABC for almost 6 years, the only network show to originate live outside of New York, Chicago, or Hollywood, and KY3 did it. First, it was a radio show called Ozark Jubilee. Then it became a local TV show telecast from the KYTV studio every Saturday night. The performers were mostly local talent, picking and singing in front of our cameras before a live studio audience. Its popularity soared. The producers moved the show to the renovated Jewel Theater in downtown Springfield. KYTV remote unit cameras beamed the program to the ABC network. The producers and KYTV management had convinced ABC that this show, with a big recording star like Red Foley as host, would be a big success. ABC liked the idea, Foley liked the idea, so a network show fed by KYTV was born. The name of the show was eventually changed to Jubilee USA, and every Saturday night, millions tuned in to hear their favorites.
Just this side of Memphis, down in Tennessee. Just this side of Memphis, that's where I long to be. I got my ticket on the fastest train. Let's get going for a go insane. Just this side of Memphis, a little town I call my home. I'm sitting on top of the world, just rolling along, rolling along. I'm quitting the blues of the world, just singing a song, just singing a song. Hallelujah, I just phoned the parson, hey, par, get her ready to call. Just like Humpty Dumpty, I'm heading for a great big ball. I'm sitting on top of the world, just roll along, just roll along. Oh, well, I'll give you love that's above and beyond the call of love, and I'll never ever make you cry. Yes, I'll give you love that's above and beyond the call of love, and love something that money can't buy. I'm back in the saddle. Where the longhorn cattle feed a mellow gently. I'm back in the saddle again. Right.
out every night, and the only love is right. Back in the saddle again.
This at one time was the #1 show in the country.
Yes, it was, yes. They called it the Cadillac of the country music shows.
Besides the guest stars, Jubilee had its regulars. For example, no Jubilee was complete without L.D. Keller and his promenaders.
Give me that special look. Sweet nothing. Sweet nothing.
In addition to country music, the Jubilee gave viewers a wide variety of musical styles.
Ankle bone, your ankle bone connected to you. Shin bone, your shin bone connected to you. Knee bone, your knee bone connected to you. Thigh bone, your thigh bone connected to you. Hip bone, your hip bone connected to you. Backbone, your backbone connected to you. Shoulder bone, your shoulder bone connected to you. Neck bone, your neck bone connected to you. Head bone, now here, without the Lord. Dim bone, dim bone, dim. An eye bone, dim bone, dim bone, dim. An eye bone, dim bone, dim bone, dim. An eye bone, now here, without the Lord. Just a closer walk with thee. Just a closer walk with thee. Granted, Jesus is my plea. Just a closer walk with thee. Yes, walking close to thee. Just a closer walk with thee. Dear Lord, let it be.
Red Foley died in 1968, 8 years after the Jubilee went off the air in 1960. In his 58 years, Foley wrote dozens of songs, sold millions of records, and was one of the first to be inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. While the Jubilee was in its heyday, Springfield was as big a country music center as Nashville.
Comes to you from the heart of the Ozark Mountains, Springfield, Missouri. Jubilee USA is produced by Crossroads TV Productions through the facilities of station KYTV. This is Joe Slattery saying, so long, everybody!
Good evening. I'm Jerry Adams. Here at KY3, we feel the news is the most important public service we perform. Since our first day on the air, KY3 News has consistently led the way in utilizing the best, most modern equipment and production techniques. That, coupled with our staff of award-winning broadcast journalists, keeps us #1 in Southwest Missouri. How has all this come about? Let's go back a few years in the news. Night Desk. For years, it was the 10 o'clock news for thousands of Ozarkians. On camera are 3 of several KYTV newsmen that once did Night Desk: Larry Dixon, Chuck Hessington, and Fran Eulis. In the early days of TV news, the people doing the news also did the commercials live. During the newscast, Anchorman ran back and forth between news set and commercial sets. Most of the time it worked well, but once in a while they'd play tricks on each other.
I had an unusual occurrence with a well-known milk company, dairy company, where I had to drink a glass of milk, and I poured the milk out of the carton and put it up to my mouth and took a big slug of it, which we all did at that time. That's the way to sell milk. And it didn't taste exactly right, and I spewed it all over the studio and the camera. And the people involved aren't with us anymore, but they should not be, I guess.
Now, why would you play tricks on people like that?
Why?
Why did that happen?
I think that's called, it's a part of juvenile delinquency.
One night after the news, I said, that's it, that's the news, good night. And slid back my chair, it's kind of a gesture, I don't know, but slid back my chair, and the 2 back legs fell into the holes in the dolly, and it catapulted me over backwards. So, you know, what the people at home could see was a guy on the tube said, that's it, good night, everyone, and then was thrown completely out of the chair backwards, you know, and then they go down to black and take a commercial. Chuck Hessington was standing right next to me and going to give a commercial for an air conditioner. And I'm on the floor, you know, in his line of sight, and he giggles all through the commercial.
And I tried to do a commercial for at least 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5, I don't know how long. And things like that, like setting a guy's copy on fire when he's trying to do a commercial. Ridiculous stuff. I'm glad it's all gone.
But there was a serious side to those early newsmen. Night Desk was the area's first package news show. It made new headway in local news gathering and reporting innovations. The growing impact of TV news was being realized by both viewers and station management, and Night Desk was a concerted effort to display the potential of TV news reporting. For example, KY3 was first to use film to shoot local news events. Viewers could see for themselves the news of that day as it happened in their community.
This is a scene at the Colonial Hotel in downtown Springfield, where Democrats from all over the state of Missouri are gathering for their annual Jackson Day event. Already, the lobby
and politics is always in the news. Newsman Dick Rosenbaugh reports from Jackson Day headquarters at the Colonial Hotel. This is one early example of another KY3 News first, sound film. The old sound film cameras were bulky and difficult to lug around, but having sound recorded at news happenings added yet another dimension to the impact of local TV news. Over the years, Springfield has been visited by several national political figures. During the 1964 campaign, vice presidential contender Hubert Humphrey spoke at Springfield Square, rallying the Democratic faithful as only the happy warrior could.
Gone, I hope, but not forgotten, is the stop-and-go economy of those 8 Eisenhower years, what I used to call the cha-cha-cha economy. A few steps forward, a few steps backwards, with a little shuffle in between.
This, the opening of the old 6 o'clock news on KY3, signaled yet another TV first for the Ozarks, color news film. Starting in 1966, KYTV newscasts were the first in studio color. 2 years later, color film added yet another dimension to our news effort. And a growing staff of reporters and photographers attested to the increased importance of local television news coverage.
Well, tomorrow we expect more showers, so it'll be a little cooler. And Ned, I guess you're going to be king of fashion. You have to have a raincoat.
I suppose, Fred. I'm going to borrow a line from cameraman Clarence Brewer tonight. From now on, we're going to have to keep you in check. All right, the Scenic Shoppers won tonight down in Clearwater.
One question frequently asked KY3 news persons is, how did you get started in broadcasting? Our man Ned Reynolds has perhaps one of the most interesting responses to that. Here he is at the tender age of 15 with Jim Backus and Jack Lascouli on NBC's Today Show.
Hey,
Ned, how long ago was it that you started in this sportscasting business?
Well, I really can't say how long ago it was, ever since I can remember.
Oh, a real old veteran. Well, how did you learn to do it so well, Mel?
Well, I'd listen to the ball game on the radio and get the style of the sportscaster. Then I'd go down and watch it on television, turn down the sound, and do the play-by-play to my family.
Young Ned had just won a student sportscasting contest on the East Coast.
Johnny Curtis goes back to pass. He uncorks a long one into the end zone and is caught for a TD.
And speaking of young broadcasters, here's a real rookie.
But he agreed that 6 other departments in this courthouse are due for a check of the books. This is Jerry Adams, KY3 News at the Greene County.
Today, KY3 News is action news, and our fleet of action news cars are familiar sights on Ozark streets and highways. We're the largest and best-equipped broadcast news staff in southwest Missouri, and our emphasis on innovative news gathering and reporting continues. Our action cams are the best quality electronic news cameras made. We were using them before many network news crews even had them. One photographer using one of these highly miniaturized and sophisticated videotape cameras is capable of recording a picture quality that it once took a whole truckload of bulky equipment and several technicians to do. KY3 News has the only live remote unit in town. With the live action cam, KY3 News can be on the air live from the scene of a breaking news story. The viewer sees the news the instant it's happening.
Here is an Action News Bulletin. Jim Caldwell reports live from the Greene County Courthouse.
Just a few moments ago, a Greene County Circuit Court jury returned a punishment against Arlene Burton.
The stories you see every day on KY3 News are the result of hours of phone calls, location taping, editing, and writing by members of our staff. It's important to have the best equipment, but we feel the key to comprehensive news coverage lies in maintaining a staff of talented, dedicated reporters and photographers. Now and in the future, KY3 News is people who care about news in the Ozarks.
Good evening, I'm Don Moeller. Some people say that television is an electronic window on the world. I hope you've enjoyed looking back on a part of your world through the programs, people, and public service of KYTV. For the past few weeks, many of us have been reflecting on the past quarter of a century and our personal association with KYTV.
I'm extremely proud of the people that we have working there. We have many long-time employees. People have been with us 20, 25 years. You can run 2 types of TV stations. You can have strictly a network thing where you just plug in the buttons and you get whatever the network sends you. Or you can develop public service programs. You can develop news programs that mean more to the people in that community. You have to be part of the community. And to be part of the community, you have to get out in it. We've had good business. We've made money, and we've invested all the money back into equipment and people to do a better job. After all, that's what we're here for. You can't run I don't think you can run a TV station and try to suck all the money out of it. You got to put something back, or if you don't, well, it's going to dry up. What's the old saying? You've got to fertilize a plant, or it'll die, or it'll grow. And I think we spent 25 years fertilizing this thing, and it's maybe it's an ego thing. I've always wanted to have the best, and we do.
I'd like to send a special greeting to Don Moeller and his staff on a very special anniversary. I am delighted to be with NBC's many friends in southwestern Missouri and northern Arkansas this evening in honoring station KYTV for a quarter century of leadership and service to the people of the Ozarks. For 25 years, KYTV has been an important and a valued member of the NBC family. All of us at NBC wish the management and the staff of KYTV a very happy 25th anniversary. You have every reason to reflect upon the past with great pride and to look to a future that is filled with even greater promise. Thank you.
On this occasion, the station's 25th anniversary, I speak for KY3's entire staff in saying that we are proud to have served Springfield and the surrounding area the last 25 years and look forward to the next 25 years with equal enthusiasm and dedication.